Hey, what's up guys, it's me the Gaming Pig back with another video. Today's a very exciting video. I literally just finished reading Step Closer, the first book in Fazbear Fright's number 4, Step Closer, and the story's name is Step Closer. So today I'm going to be doing a review, as well as a summary, and spoiler-free review on the whole book. So I'll be starting with spoiler-free review, then going into summary, then reviewing the entire story. And yeah, so let's not waste any time. This is gonna be a longer video, so if there are certain parts that you want to watch more than others, I will have timestamps, or I should say even chapters that you can use. So if you have not read the book yet, please skip out on the spoiler section unless you feel like you don't really care about the book or you're not going to actually read it ever. Then you can go ahead and watch the spoiler section and, you know, the whole summary. So let's get into it, starting with the spoiler-free section. So this book, it does a lot of stuff. It's very crazy. It's basically about a kid named Pete who lashes out on his younger brother. He just finds his younger brother to be annoying, and he gets like a literal curse put on him, and that's all I'll say about it. And things go very, very south for him, and it goes way more extreme than you would think it would. Like it's an actually insane story. Like if you're looking for a crazy FNAF book, we've got you covered with this one. The first story, Step Closer, at least, it goes all over the place. And without going too much into spoilers, it'll really make you think, you know, like, about a lot of stuff. And that's really all I can really say. It's pretty good. The writing is pretty good, you know, it has you on the edge of your seat. It's a pretty short story. I mean, all of these are short stories. I was able to finish it in a couple of hours. But, it's really crazy. Like, it honestly makes you, like, you know, I don't know, think a lot. Like, maybe you understand something for a second and then you get kind of confused to where the story's going, but you can always kind of, like, theorize about what's going to happen. So yeah, so now I'm going to go ahead and go into my summary. This is the summary of the entire story. I have 8 pages of notes that I took just for this video, so you guys better make sure to like it and subscribe if you are new. But it's 8 pages summary. I'm going to go through it. This is going to take a majority of the video. And yeah, so let's get into it. Let's not waste any time. So first of all, the main character is named Pete, of course. Not really too much of a spoiler. He's 16-year-old, and he goes to a high school, of course. And the side characters, you have Chuck, or Chucky, which is the younger brother. He's 11 and a half, we learn, and his friend, Maria, which is a cheerleader, and a friend of his, maybe a love interest, but it never really goes anywhere. And, yeah, so she's also 16, I would have to assume, just because they're in the same grade and all of that. So, yeah, and this story is set in a modern setting, we know, because there's cell phones and online games. So yeah, this is, once again, a modern day setting of a story, just like all of the other stories really have been. And without further ado, let's get into the actual story. So, the basics are that, unfortunately, Pete's family has had a divorce, and yeah, so Pete ends up being kind of the father figure for his younger brother, Chuck, and he doesn't really like that. He has to go literally everywhere with his younger brother, Chuck, and he doesn't like that. He has to go places where he would never really want to go, and it's very boring to him. And he used to be on the football team at school, but just because of how stressful his life was being, and, you know, he was benched by the coach for being too rough on the team, and he just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna quit. That's it. And yeah, he kind of was, like, it seemed like a cooler kid, you know, like, oh, I'm part of the football team, I'm a tough guy, and then, you know, he kind of just declined into, you know, a bit of a mess after what happened, it seems. So, anyways, the story kind of starts off. Chuck's at Freddy Fazbear's, having a fun time, and here you have Pete just kind of sitting down, like, okay, what do I do? I'm just being dragged along here, like always. And he's very bored, like there's nothing for him to do. literally at all. But Chuck likes to go to the pizza place a lot. That's kind of later on in the story. That's how he says that he kind of copes with it. He gets to do stuff, including going to the pizzeria. That's just what's fun to him, apparently. And yeah, he likes going to Freddy's quite a lot with his friends. Pete is dragged along there. And then Pete sees his friend Maria, and he realizes that he really thinks about it, and he's like, you know what, I can't do anything, like, I can't do other stuff. She asks him, like, oh, you wanna, hang out with a couple people this day? Oh, no, I can't, I'm gonna be with Chuck, and that's kind of why he lashed out, because his brother Chuck walks to the bathroom, walks out, and Pete just grabs him by the arm and takes him to the maintenance room, because some maintenance workers were talking about how Foxy is in there. And so they go down the corridor into the maintenance room. It's a dark room, and it's a very large room, of what he's described it as. Weirdly enough, there are some dark metal candles with black markings, which we don't really ever get an explanation to what that means, if that has any use, and why that's in a pizzeria, but it is there, and in the pizzeria. And yeah, so they walk in there, and then they see the Pirate Cove stage. Like, the entire stage is literally in the maintenance room, and Pete is holding on to Chuck, and Chuck gets basically thrown onto the stage, and Pete accidentally presses the start button on the stage, and next thing you know, Foxy starts moving about, and Chucky runs out of the room before he can get hurt in any way, and then Pete gets caught in a nail on the stage, and this is when things start to get interesting. Foxy, first of all, his design is described as just like what is from FNAF 1, really. Nothing too different there. But anyway, he starts singing the lyrics. Yarg, you can be a pirate, but first you have to lose an eye and an arm. And he describes that the bright eyes are what really draws him to this animatronic. He just can't stop looking at the bright yellow eyes that Foxy has. So, and he keeps repeating, Yarg, you can be a pirate, but first you have to lose an arm and an eye. And he just keeps repeating that, and that sticks with him, with Pete, going on. And then they leave the pizzeria, and it's the next day, and next thing you know, Pete feels sick. But he goes to school anyways, because he doesn't want his mother to worry about him. And he has a dream about blood after that day, and he just doesn't understand it, but he just got over it. So at breakfast, his mother says that they're going to be organ donors. This is very important later on, but yeah, they decide to be organ donors, and he doesn't like that. Pete doesn't like that idea at all. He doesn't really understand why they're doing that, but yeah, it is important later on. So in his bio class, he dissects the frog in science. He's very tired, he's very grossed out, he's very out of it, he seems. He goes to get a drink of water, he comes back, he slips and falls, and the knife that they used to cut open the frog nearly falls, it's heading straight towards his eye, and he just has a quick reflex and, hits it away from him, and it barely misses him. And all the classmates go around him and make fun of him. So this is just kind of reinstating that he kind of, I feel like, was more popular. And then he kind of lost it, he lost his cool after he left the football team. Because some students say stuff like, ha ha ha, no wonder you're not on the football team anymore and all that. Anyways, after school he gets a message from his mother to go to the butcher. So he goes to the butcher. He walks to the butcher after school, and he doesn't see anyone in there. He's knocking, hello, anyone there? So he walks into the butcher a little bit more to just investigate, and he sees wait, where's the person? I'm trying to get an order, and he sees all of these meats hanging from above him, and he finds it just very grossed out. He's very out of it and sick for some reason. and he just seems very disgusted, to be honest. And then, out of nowhere, one of the hanging meats falls down straight towards him and nearly hits his wrist, and right about there, and nearly basically, could have probably really damaged his wrist to arm area. And he just barely misses that, another thing that he barely dodged. And at this point, he's a little confused. The owner kind of scolds him, like, "What are you doing in here?" He gets the food and leaves. And then the next day, he walks to school through a construction site, since the street is too busy to cross. And again, this doesn't seem like a good thing, does it? Whenever he does something, it seems like something could go wrong. And anyway, he's moving through this construction site. There's some scaffolding above him, and as he walks right out of that scaffolding, a chainsaw literally drops right down on him. And he looks up, he tries to get it out of his way, and he ends up cutting his arm. So then the construction workers just call 911. He looks at the cut. It wasn't very deep, but it caused blood. And again, another wound near the arm area. You need to remember that. You need to remember that for this whole story to make sense. Anyway, all he needed was a bandage. No stitches, no nothing. The chainsaw didn't give him that big of a cut, but he needed a bandage. And when he gets home, his mom was very worried about what happened, and then we get introduced to his dad, who checks up on him and sees if he's alright. His dad says, "Go fishing with me." And he's like, "But I'm very tired, I'm exhausted, I've been very hurt today." And his father's like, "Oh yeah, you'll be fine, fishing is relaxing anyway." So he goes fishing. And another thing that goes wrong, let's just say that. So, his dad and him are talking about, how things are going, his dad is a little disappointed that he's left the football team and is being mean to his brother. And, they're talking, and they wish, Pete wishes that things would be better, and he's all angry. And right as Pete begins to lash out on his father, someone throws a fishing rod, and it's windy, and the wind blows the fishing rod, and it gets the hook stuck right in his skin, near his cheek area. It cuts him on the cheek. Remember that? That's kind of close to the eye, the eye. We've got injuries near the arm, and injuries near the eye now. Remember that once again. And it ends up being that someone was just, they accidentally flew the string, and it went towards him, and he got cut in the cheek. He ended up being fixed up and alright. He feels all better, because he just gets a bandage, and he feels all good. Once he gets home, though, he has a little conversation with Chuck about possibly this being karma for Pete trying to scare Chuck by trying to scare him with Foxy. That whole Foxy situation that we talked about earlier. Pete tells Chuck that it was just unlucky things that happened, and he tells him all the unlucky things that happened throughout the day, and they come up with the idea that Pete might have been cursed. And Pete apologizes to Chuck for scaring him. If that was the reason for the curse, he thinks, you know what, if that is the reason, fine, whatever, I'm cool with that. And Chuck still thinks that there's more to this curse, like there's a reason. Maybe it has something to do with Foxy, I don't know. And anyways, so Chuck and Pete end up playing a video game together, again, getting along better. And the game is about a cursed village, and a mage who has to redeem the village of its curse before it's too late. So again, that kind of feels like the whole story that's going on right now here, where Pete has a curse, and he needs to try and fix the curse before it's too late. And Chuck is trying to kind of show him that through this video game, I think, but it's never really truly explained, but I definitely think that's some sort of meaning there. And they play it for a few hours, and then Chuck and Pete get along better. They're getting along better after Pete has apologized, for being rude and stuff. And Chuck gives Pete a theory that the curse started with Foxy, So it could possibly be ended by Foxy. And what really gets Pete is the fact that Chuck says that the song that Foxy sings, "You can be a pirate, but first you have to lose an eye and an arm, yarg," is what started the whole curse in the first place, and that's why he nearly loses an eye and an arm multiple times. Pete ignores the facts and thinks that Chuck is just saying that to scare Pete, like Pete tried to scare Chuck, and he thinks that they're just trying to get back at each other. And so Pete begins to yell at Chuck angrily, and later that night, Pete tries to fall asleep, and he sees movement outside. He thinks it's nothing for a few times, then he's like, whoa, I definitely see movement. Then, he hears the backyard gate open. Yep. Then, he hears his door open. Then he swears he hears footsteps, then he definitely hears creaks on his floor tiles. Then he closes his eyes just in fear. He opens them, and Foxy is right in front of him in his house. Foxy begins to attack him with a hook. Foxy literally pops Pete's eye, literally pops it, and also cuts the hand off of Pete. Then he wakes up and he sees sunlight, and he realizes it was all just a really bad nightmare. He claims that it was very real feeling. So, he goes to high school again. There's this carnival homecoming thing going on that's pirate themed, which, just scared him even more. And Pete was taking everything very seriously. There was this hand trap prank that Maria tried to get him into at the carnival. And it's like this hand trap thing where you get it stuck in, and then the more you try and pull it out, the more you get stuck. But where you can try to release that trap and, let the hand actually go after you're done pranking the person. It didn't work. So he started losing his hand circulation. And eventually, when they actually cut they cut the hand trap loose and he just got his hand freed, his hand was purple and numb. So, again, his hand is being attacked. His arm is being, basically destroyed through the past couple of days. Again, losing a hand and an arm and eyes. So that whole thing is kind of showing through this whole carnival thing. While he's trying to escape the carnival, he's like, oh my goodness, I think that this curse is real. He gets stuck in a mirror maze where he sees images of Pirate Foxy in the mirrors, and this is clearly scaring him. When Pete moved, he saw that Foxy moved, which he found very creepy. When he saw the exits, suddenly Foxy jumped out at him, and it ends up that it was just someone in a mask that apparently had a Foxy pirate mask on, just trying to scare him, just trying to get a good laugh, and that's just about it. When he got out of the maze, though, he was walking all over the place, and he saw darts flying towards him, towards balloons, but also flying straight towards him near his lower eye. Not right on inside, but the skin near his lower inner eye. And he got cut by the eye, almost hit in the eye, and he hears a parrot, a literal parrot, say, "Lose an eye, lose an arm." And he's like, whoa, Foxy, Foxy's possessing this parrot somehow. He's freaking out. He literally goes freak out mode. He's yelling at a teacher at one point. He runs out of the school, calls Chuck, tells him that we need to face Foxy together. Get out of your school. We need to go to Freddy's and face Foxy. Because at this point, he finally believes the curse, and he finally realizes that his brother was right all along. Things get crazy, though. Things get crazy after this point. I was shocked. So he's running. He crosses the street. No joke. He turns to look to his side, and a truck just literally runs him over. That's literally in the story. It's honestly quite tragic and shocking. And as we continue through here, you'll see just it really gets honestly quite tragic. So Chuck saw the messages after Pete had been ran over, keep this in mind, and runs to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. He runs all the way to Freddy's, from school to Freddy's. And he has an inhaler, so this run was apparently incredibly hard for him, as is. So, you know, he understood that Pete finally believed him. So he was able to sneak into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and he got to the maintenance room, and he flashed his light all over looking for Pete, seeing if he was in there trying to trick him. But he realized that Pete was not trying to trick him anymore. He actually believed what Chuck was saying. So he presses the start button, but before he's able to, he gets his phone ringing, and it's his father, worried about him and talking about Pete. The whole family had apparently been notified about Pete being hit by the truck, and they all go there to see him. They literally go into the, you know, ambulance type thing, and the paramedics say, he's died, sorry for your loss. It's really tragic, and it's just, you know, it's the curse kind of working in its ways, and it seemed like the curse finally just, you know, ended him here. The curse keeps getting progressively worse and worse and more dangerous until eventually Pete died. So, yeah. Things continue though. Pete still has his consciousness. He can still see things happening. Suddenly he awakes and he sees that he's like, you know, he's with doctors and stuff, and they're, you know, he can hear them speaking. He thinks that he's speaking to them in his mind. Like, he's speaking in his mind, but he thinks that they're hearing him. But in reality, he's already dead. But for some reason, he still has consciousness at this point. He can't move, but he thinks he can speak. He can think, and he can hear, and he can see. Alright? So he sees the men, you know, like, oh, he died so young, that's so sad, and he's like, what are they talking about? And then, he said, the men, handling him say, hey, he's an organ donor. Remember earlier how I talked about how it would be important that the family became organ donors? This is why. He literally watches them as they do the organ donor surgery. It's weird. And then he sees the surgery unfold. Suddenly he hears the Foxy song play, and he watched as his eyes were taken out, and that's all that we hear from Pete for the rest of the story. Yeah, that's it. Then we get this nice 4 weeks later thing, and it's actually kind of somewhat happy ending, somewhat bittersweet, and somewhat actually unusual, and we don't know where it's leading. But first of all, Pete's mother and father reunite after the funeral, which is a good thing. Then, of course, Chuck actually decides to go back to Freddy's. He goes back to the maintenance room. He wants to finish what they had started. He wants to defeat Foxy. He presses the start button, and literally, if I am to read the final sentences to you, it says, he waited for the curtain to pull back, for Foxy to begin to sing, but nothing happened. All Chuck heard was complete silence, and that's the end of the book. That's the end. Alright, that was the summary. Again, a lot. I'm so happy I got through it that quickly. I have literally 8 pages of notes, and I probably skipped through some quicker than I read it through. But my review now. This is the spoiler review after the summary of me just talking about the book. You know, talking about what lore I think it may have. And all in all, just talking about the story. So, this one goes off the rails. You know, a mother and father arguing, that may seem like, possibly, William Afton and William Afton's, wife, but we really don't get anything about that. So we don't know. It probably, you know, doesn't really have any connection to that. It's probably just for the sake of the story, really. But what I think this has a greater connection to is the whole I guess, Bite of 83, brother and son, or, sorry, brother and younger brother. I think that, you know, the older brother pranks, the younger brother and accidentally, harms him. And I think that it just has some sort of connection. I'm not sure how. It just seems like it's very similar. It has to have some sort of connection. Somehow, some way. I just think it does. You know, it's weird. I don't fully get it. I think we'll have to wait for a Matt Pat theory to be completely, you know, understanding of what's going on here. And even then, I don't even know if he'll fully understand what's going on. But it was an amazing story. I do have to say, like, from start to finish, I was shocked. At the beginning, you know, it didn't really go too slow. Like, it was, from the very start, we knew that Foxy was going to be attacking. Foxy was there from the very beginning, you know, doing his stuff, really causing all this curse to begin. And it's just absolutely insane what happens in this book. I do have to say that. It just, you know, it makes Foxy a lot scarier. Again, Foxy shouldn't really have that much lore relevance. So, you know, I don't even know if it's necessarily Foxy in the game. Like, what's the in-game counterpart to this version of Foxy who can cause a curse to happen? Like, what is this trying to call out for lore? I don't know. Again, I don't know. The lore doesn't make that much sense personally, though I love the story. Like, it's tragic too, like all the stuff that happens in there. It's tragic, and it's really shocking, like all the stuff that they do, and I love it. I'd honestly, it's slow-ish kind of at the beginning, but it really gets into it pretty quickly. I'd say quicker than some of the other Fazbear Fright stories. It seems stereotypical of the Fazbear Frights at first, but it definitely does its own thing. You know, it's great. If I had to rate this, though, I'd probably give it about, gosh, it's hard to say. I'd probably have to rate this book a 9.5 out of 10. Again, there were some parts that weren't the most thrilling, but overall, the story is just so interesting, and I don't exactly know where it's going or what Scott's trying to tell us through this book. But I loved it. I loved every second of it. And, yeah, it was a quick, easy read. I just finished it the time that this is posted, probably last night. But, yeah. So, it was a fun read. I will have reviews on all of the other stories. Again, the other stories are titled, if you just give me 1 second here. The other stories are titled Dance With Me and Coming Home. So, Coming Home, I have a theory about that has something to do with the whole Susie incident, and the Susie ending up being the child who possessed Chica. And as for Dance With Me, I believe that it will have something to do with sister location, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys really did enjoy this review and summary of Steps Closer, Fazbear Fright number 4. If you did go on to enjoy this video, make sure to like my video and subscribe if you are new to the channel. I will be making videos like this for the next couple of weeks until I finished all of the stories. Also, I do have to do this for 1:35 a.m. since I missed 1:35 a.m. but I really wanted to jump on this book first. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Take care.